Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, if we've got some people that have joined us early for this session, hopefully you can see me, you can hear me, and all the technology is working well. I always keep my fingers crossed on a Friday that everything's going to work in terms of the Wi-Fi, the technology, StreamYard, etc. So do let me know if you are with me at the moment. Just pop your a quick hello in the comments, because I can't see everybody that joins, and I can only see the comments. So if you are with me at the moment, then hopefully you'll just pop a little hello in the comments, just so that I know that that you've joined me. But I hope you all had a fantastic Easter break. And if you were back to work this week, hopefully you were able to ease yourself back into work gently rather than it being completely manic. I'm guessing, because I remember my days of being employed, when you had a bank holiday, you still had a lot of emails in your inbox waiting to be answered and read. So hopefully it's been a nice shorter working week for you. And of course, today's Friday, so that means it's Dancing Friday, it's Friday playlist. Do check out my post this morning if you haven't had a chance to as yet. And of course, we're all looking forward to the weekend, I'm sure. And hopefully, wherever you are, the sun is shining. We have got some blue sky in Marvin, which is where I live, and the sun is shining as well, which is always good to see. Thank you very much, Pete. For those of you that don't know, Pete is my husband. So I'm always guaranteed at least one person joining me in these sessions. And do forgive me, Onyini, if I haven't pronounced your name correctly. But thank you very much for letting me know that you're here with me. And it's your first time as well. So hopefully you're going to find the next 30 minutes or so of value to you, because I'm going to be talking about today something that I'm very passionate about. Those of you that have been following me for some time, is how to deliver great service if you're a contact center agent. And if you manage a team of contact center agents or call handlers within any office environment, then you play an important part as well. So I am going to be talking today about the role that team leaders can have in terms of developing and nurturing and supporting their contact center agents, but also some of the key skills that's required in terms of delivering great service over the phone. And I'm very much going to be taking it back to basics, because again, if you've been reading some of my posts recently, it is often the basics that go wrong. So rather than businesses focusing on, the next shiny new offer or, service or product that they're offering, just make sure, just take a step back and think, are we getting the basics right? Because that's what your customers start with. They want to ensure that they are going to receive the basics in the right way. And then once you do that on a consistent basis, then you can look at wowing your customers. But it is starting very much with the basics. So if you are joining me, then I'm hoping that this session is going to be very interactive. I do welcome, as I'm going through some of my bugbears as a customer, if you can relate to any of them, if you have your own experiences, positive as well as negative experiences, then do pop those into the comments as I'm going through it. Of course, I welcome your questions as well. So hopefully we've got a few more joining us. I usually give it a couple of minutes before I get started, because I know some people may be popping in and joining us a couple of minutes into the session. So if we have got anybody else that's joined us in the last minute or so, do let me know in the comments that you're with me, because I can't see you all. So it is good to know who I'm talking to. So, as you know, my strapline is very much quick step to happier customers. And those of you that know me well in terms of the customer service dancing queen title, then you'll understand where that quick step comes from. But it is about making sure that you are delivering the level of service that your customers want to go away and feel like they want to do a happy dance, even if the reality is that they don't, but that's how you want to make them feel. And so just some interesting statistics from the UK CSI January 2024 report, which shows that around 16.8% of contacts to businesses were customers ringing. And that's an increase of 0.2% since January 2020. And that doesn't surprise me when we look at the report over the last few years that customer satisfaction has been dropping. And when customers are dissatisfied, then it's more likely they're going to pick up the phone. Just think about yourself as a customer. If you've got a complaint, if something's gone wrong, the chances are you want to speak to a human being. And so seeing a slight increase in contacts by phone really doesn't surprise me against customer satisfaction going down. And customer satisfaction, particularly by the phone, has dropped considerably compared with January 2020. So it's gone down by 1.9 points. So just think about that for the moment. If you have a team of call handlers within your business, are your team getting those basics right? And what are those basics? Well, I'm going to share those throughout the next 30 minutes or so. But again, just for me to say, if you've got any questions, got any thoughts as I'm going through, please do let me know in the comments, or say a quick hello as well. So I'm going to start at the beginning of a phone call. The first impressions absolutely do matter. And this actually partly is about, even before you start the conversation with a customer, how are you actually sitting in your chair? Because I know from my own experience, and those that don't know me very well, I started my career at the age of 19, 20, working in contact centres. And I know how stressful it can be. And I know how tiring it can be as the day goes on and you've been speaking to customer after customer. It's quite natural for our energy levels to dip throughout the day. And of course, when we start to feel tired, then that's when our posture starts to dip. We might start slouching. And certainly tiredness can affect our energy levels, can affect our concentration levels, and certainly can affect our mood as well. So we want to ensure that we're delivering a great service to our customer, no matter what time of day that customer contacts your team. And so making sure as a contact center agent, and again, this is where team leaders can play a part in this, just encouraging your agents to stand up, to stretch, to walk around. Now, if you're office based, then we tend to do that quite naturally, because if you need to go and get a coffee, or if you need to go and speak to somebody in another department, there's lots of opportunities to actually get up from your chair and walk around. But just think about agents that are partly or fully working from home. That's where, again, it's important for advisors to make sure that even if they are working at home and they don't have the opportunity to go and speak to somebody in another department and therefore get up from their chair, is they do periodically throughout the day just stand. If they have the opportunity to go and grab some fresh air, during their breaks, to have a bit of a walk around, because you don't go from standing to slouching. And so it can just help to re-energize us. And so, as well as in that picture shows the advisor smiling down the phone to the customers, it's important that we're sat upright as much as possible as well throughout the course of the day. So we start that conversation with enthusiasm. And of course, customers can't see the smile, but they can absolutely hear it through your tone of voice. So we want customers to ensure that they are hearing that enthusiasm, they're hearing that smile, and the clarity is great as well, because we're sat upright and our chin isn't down there somewhere. It's certainly raised so that we are speaking with as much clarity as we possibly can. And so, again, it's about starting that conversation in the right way. But of course, you're going to welcome your customers, and hopefully you're going to find out who you're speaking to. And hopefully as well, you're going to, as soon as you know who you're speaking to use that customer's name in the conversation. But of course, you're going to be asking the customer how you may help. And it's really important at this point as an advisor that you are actively listening. Now, again, this is me speaking from experience. I know how quickly an advisor, once they've got a reference number from a customer, how quickly they are typing that into their systems. And then, of course, they've got information to read on their computer screen. What I want to say here is just pause for a moment if you're an advisor. Listen to your customer. There is no room for multitasking when it comes to listening. Yes, absolutely, there is a time where you will need to read information, but it shouldn't be at the point where your customer is telling you the reason for their call and giving you information, because you want to be paying close attention to that, as well as, because they can't see you, letting them know that you are listening through those verbal nods. So letting them know, aha, yes, I see, I understand, just keeping that conversation flowing. And of course, there will be times for you to check your understanding, because our brain is very busy throughout the course of the day and it's taking in a lot of information. Around, according to the experts, around 11 million bits of information every second, which I don't know about you, but that's wow. And so our brain has to filter some of the information. So we might delete some of the information provided. We might make assumptions about what we think the customer's going to say next, particularly if you've been in a role for a long time. And sometimes we can distort the information as well, i.e. we see it from our own experience rather than really listening to it from the customer's experience. And so just checking that we have the right understanding, asking TED questions, tell me more about that, or explain or describe. Describe could be describe the error message, or what's happening when you you enter a certain page on the website, what message is available on the screen to you. Can you read that message to me? So just really exploring and helping the customer to give you as much information as possible, but also questions help to check your understanding and make sure that you are not making assumptions. It's also important, I'm sure you agree, to repeat important information, such as making sure that you've got the right reference number, that's this right account on the screen. But of course, if you're going to be agreeing to contact the customer by phone, by making a follow-up call to them after this particular conversation, you want to make sure you've obtained the correct details. So email addresses, contact numbers, etc. Just to repeat those back to make sure that you've got that information correct. Because again, it might be background noise, either your end or background noise at the customer's end, that might mean that you've misheard information. But the only way, going back to what I was saying about your brain distorting, deleting, or making assumptions, so the only way that you can be 100% certain that you have understood, interpreted the information the customer's given you correctly, is by summarizing back your understanding. So saying something like, so my understanding of the issue, or my understanding of what you've been told so far, Mrs. Turner, is, and then relaying that to your customer. Is that correct? And there's an opportunity for your customer to then say, yes, absolutely, which shows that you've understood and listened. Or they might say, yes, I did say that, but I didn't quite mean it in that way. Or they might even say, yes, I did talk about point A, but I also talked about point B as well, which your brain might have just deleted. So before you go into problem solving mode, it's really important to summarize back your understanding. And again, if you've joined me on the session, have there been times recently that you can remember where an advisor potentially hasn't checked, hasn't repeated back, hasn't summarized, and therefore it's led to a misunderstanding during a conversation, or even a further issue, or you were waiting for a call back and it never happened because they had your wrong contact details? Any experiences that you've had, please do share them in the comments. Now, of course, if a problem has arisen, then your customer, before you go into problem solving in terms of actions, is looking for an apology, but a sincere apology. And what I mean by this is avoiding generic phrases, scripted responses, such as, I'm sorry for any inconvenience. Let's just think about this for the moment. If you're saying sorry, your customer has told you what the problem is, i.e. they've received the wrong delivery or there's been a delay with a payment. So is there really a need to use that general phrase, any inconvenience, which may sound to the customer as if you're doubting the level of impact to the customer? The best way to be sincere with your apology is be specific. So I'm very sorry that you haven't received the payment that you expected within 5 working days. Or I'm very sorry that the wrong parcel has been sent out to you. So that you are being specific about the reason why you're saying sorry. Of course, that's going to be followed with some empathy, i.e. the understanding the impact to your customer that has had, and of course be followed with positive actions that you're going to take. But make sure when you're saying sorry, and again as a team leader, listen out for this when you're call monitoring, making sure that your advisors are being specific with that apology. Now, saying sorry and empathy are two different things, but they often go hand in hand together. Because if the customer has received the wrong product, I'm guessing they're going to feel disappointed, frustrated. So sometimes customers will tell you how they're feeling, and that makes it a little bit easier. So if they do say, I'm really disappointed about this, then relay that back to your customer to show that you've listened. So that saying something like, the disappointment or the frustration that you've described, Mrs. Turner, is understandable, and I would absolutely feel the same if this happened to me. Rather than, I understand how you feel. Do you really? Can anybody truly say that they fully understand how somebody else feels when no two situations and no two people are identical? So my advice is stay away from that phrase and focus more specifically on the customer's feelings. Have they described how they're feeling? Then relay it back. Can you get a sense from their tone and the words they've used? So can you get a sense of their frustration? Can you hear how disappointed they are? So focusing on what you can hear, what you can feel, what you can sense, or what they've told you are far better ways of empathizing than using that generic phrase. Would you agree with me, those of you that have joined the session? Is that something that that you've heard on many occasions, and how does it make you feel? Now, of course, if something has gone wrong, the last thing that a customer wants to hear is the, I'm sorry, I understand how the frustration. And then the next thing that you say is, but unfortunately, big no. Your customers do not want to know what you can't offer or what you can't do. Now, 99% of the time, even when you can't fully meet a customer's requirements, there is often something you can offer or something you can do. And so rather than focusing on that word unfortunately at the start of your response, because just think about it for a moment. If somebody starts their response to you with unfortunately, what are you going to think is coming next? And the chances are that you may start to switch off from what the advisor is saying, because you're now thinking about your retaliation. You're thinking about how you're going to respond to the fact that they can't offer what you've asked. So my technique and my tip here that I learned very early on in my career was swap it around. Always start with what you can offer, i.e. offer the alternative. So what I am able to offer or what I am able to do, Mrs. Turner, is explain what the alternative option is and then pop on how that will help. So what is the benefit of that alternative solution that you're offering to the customer, so they can see that you're trying to find solutions that's going to help. And if you've offered a really good benefit and you can immediately see that your customer is now focusing on that alternative and they're happy with that alternative, then you may not even need to then pop in the negative after. But if you do, then you start with that I am able to offer and explain the benefits. I am sorry that on this occasion we cannot or we are unable to offer, obviously, option A, which is what the customer asked for, and explain why. So you slot in the bit that you can't do, but always make sure you explain the reasons why to your customer. But then finish off by reiterating again the benefits of your option B. However, I am confident that option B will, and again, explain how that will help your customer. So you start with the options, i.e. what you can do. You sandwich the unfortunately bit in the middle, but you don't need to say that word unfortunately. Just explain why you can't offer them or can't provide the option that they asked for, and then finish off by reiterating your confidence that this alternative will be a good solution for them. And of course, then ask the customer if they'd like to go ahead with it. So try and make sure that you avoid that word unfortunately as much as possible. And yes, glad you agree with that, that Pete. And both of us haven't we come across that on far too many occasions. So again, if there's anybody new that's joined us, do let me know in the comments that you're here. And of course, I welcome your questions and your thoughts as well. Another basic, but often goes wrong and causes frustration, because customers don't get frustrated because they've been put on hold. Customers become frustrated because of the way in which it's done. So follow my art of placing customers on hold. ART stands for ask, reason, and timescale. Never just tell a customer that you're going to do it. Never assume that they're okay to be popped on hold. So it should always be an ask. And of course, they should be clear in terms of the reason and how that will benefit them. So if you need to go and check with a manager, how is that going to help your customer? So you're going to go and check with the manager to hopefully get agreement that you're able to then provide that solution to them. And then time scale is really important. Now, I'm not saying you have to be specific here and saying it's going to take me 1 minute and 10 seconds. Of course not. But give your customers some approximation in terms of a time scale. So it shouldn't take me any more than a couple of minutes to do that. Is that okay, Mrs. Turner? But always wait for your customer to respond. Now, of course, the other part of hold is be mindful of the time. If you can see that it's going to take a little bit longer than that couple of minutes, do make sure that your call handling advisors are going back to the customer, apologizing, thanking the customer for holding, explaining why it's taking a little bit longer, and then offering the option to the customer of either a call back or continuing to hold. Again, basics, but I'm guessing that for some of you on this session today, that's been done badly on more than one occasion. And if you've had a recent experience of this, do share. Another basic is transferring customers. Now, I'm not talking about just transferring from department to department to department, because that is frustrating for customers. But I am talking about when you know that there is another colleague or another member in another department that is the best person to respond to this question, and that you know therefore the right thing to do and the best thing to do is to transfer to that specific person, then transferring the customer using my 3 R's approach. So again, this is another case of where you often hear, unfortunately, Mrs. Turner, you've come through to the wrong department. Have I really? Well, if you made it clearer on your automated options, then perhaps I would have found it easier to get through to the right person. We don't want to be blaming our customers, do we? So again, let's delete, unfortunately, you've come through to the wrong department and apportioning blame to your customer. Let's change that around. So as your inquiry is about, I can transfer you through to our admin team, to our marketing team, make sure that you're explaining to the customer who that person or who that team is, who will absolutely be able to help you with this inquiry. Reassure the customer. If you're able to do what we call a warm transfer, i.e. you can speak to your colleague in another department before you put the customer through, reassure the customer you're going to do that. So you've explained the reason why that you're going to transfer it, or you'd like to transfer the customer, and who you're going to transfer through to. The reassure is, and just to reassure you, I will pass on your details to my colleague before I put you through, so you won't have to repeat your information. Isn't that reassuring to your customer? But of course, the final R is request permission. Would you like me to put you through to the team, or would you like me to ask a member of that team to give you a call at an arranged time? So again, let's get rid of the unfortunately's and in terms of blaming the customer. Explain, as your inquiry is about, who are you going to pass that call through to? Reassure them that you are going to relay that information through to your colleague, and then check that they're happy for you to do that. But of course, if you're the colleague then actually receiving that call that's been transferred, please do not start with saying, how can I help? Because your customer is going to feel really frustrated when they're thinking, oh, here we go, I'm going to have to repeat my information. So always make sure if you're on the receiving end, you've been given the information. So hello, Mrs. Turner, my understanding of the reason why you're calling today is that correct? And then hopefully that will give the reassurance that your customer needs in that particular situation. Now, of course, there are times where customers may be irate, they may be angry, and I've certainly dealt with many of those customers in my career. But the key thing here is customers won't often tell you what else is going on in their life. Customers may have worries over financial bills. They may have had a recent bereavement. They may be worried about their mortgage payments. All sorts of things may be happening in that customer's world. So it might not be the actual event that's occurred within your company that's made them really angry, but it's the final sort of tipping point, if you like. So understanding that from your customer, that actually, yes, it's not nice to receive anger over the phone, but try and understand where that anger might be coming from. But again, it's important to stay calm, take some deep breaths if you have to. And it is absolutely fine if you're finding it difficult because that customer is shouting, they may be using inappropriate language, that if you're finding it's hindering you in terms of helping, then the approach that I often recommend to you is firstly relate to the customer that you still want to help them. So I'm trying my very best to help you, Mrs. Turner, but then explain the behavior and the impact. But I'm finding it difficult to do that when you continue to shout or when you swear. So all you're doing is stating calmly what behavior you're receiving from the customer and how that is impacting you. But then let's bring the we in this. So let's work together on this to find the right solution for you. Now, I found 9 times out of 10 that approach when I used it was very effective, and often customers would apologize to me. But it's about that 3-step approach. So reiterate that you are trying your best to help and you do want to help your customer. Explain the behavior and the impact it's having, but then let's work together. Now, of course, if the customer continues with that behavior, then you might need to be a little bit more assertive next time. So again, explaining, as I've said, I'm trying my best to help, but I am finding it increasingly difficult to do that while you continue shouting. Now, if in your organisation you have the processes and the policies in place that says that you can then calmly explain to the customer if they continue, then you may need to terminate the call. Then, of course, follow your company's processes. Often I would find that, rather than doing that, getting a manager involved would be much better than terminating that conversation. So, any questions? We are going to go over the 30 minutes. I should have warned you at the start because this is something I'm very passionate about, but I do hope that you can stay with me a little bit longer. And of course, again, do share any questions that you have. Now, this one is really important because we all know that AI, particularly in contact centers, is something that's progressing in terms of helping advisors dealing with the basic queries. So moving forward, it is highly likely that the basic queries that customers have will be dealt with by a chatbot, by AI technology. Therefore, it's really important as managers that we start to develop the problem solving abilities, confidence, and skills of your agents now. Because if in the future they're going to be dealing with the more complex queries, the complaints, the things that go wrong, then rather than passing a call through to a manager as soon as a customer says, I want to speak to your manager, let's try and build their confidence to actually take ownership of that call right now. Acknowledge, reframe, and reassure. What I mean by this is, first of all, acknowledge the customer's request. So I do understand that you feel that my manager may be the best person to help you with this. However, will you give me the opportunity to find out more about your inquiry, depending on how much information the customer's given you, and do my very best to help you first? And of course, if I am unable to help, then I will put you through to my manager or arrange for my manager to give you a call back. So this is just about calmly reiterating to the person, I understand why you might wish to speak to manager, but I'm confident that I will be able to help you with this and give me an opportunity to do that first. Now, of course, if the person still reiterates no, they want to speak to the manager, then don't have an argument with a customer. Just agree, what the best process is for that. Is your team manager available to take the call now, or do you need to arrange an agreed time when your manager is able to do that? So start building those skills in terms of confidence, ownership, problem solving right now with your advisors. So when we get to that point where they might be dealing with the more complex queries on a regular basis, then they feel equipped to be able to take those calls where a customer may be asking to speak to their manager. So I'm just reading what Peter's put. So I have plenty of experience managing angry and aggressive customers in a previous job, and I wish I'd been given more help and support in diffusing situations. Yeah, absolutely. Early in my career, I thought exactly the same. I was given the basics, but sometimes it was about learning on the job and building my skills that way. I'm going to finish off because I did say that I'm going to talk about how team leaders can support their call handling teams for now and prepare them for that future. And I have, talked about some of the things up until this point that team leaders can do. The first thing is empower your agents. They are the people speaking to the customers. They are the people that know how that customer is feeling because they've had that conversation. And therefore, rather than having to put customers on hold to say, let me go and check with my team leader, how much empowerment are you giving your advisors right now? And are there opportunities for you to give them that little bit extra empowerment to make more decisions? Again, preparing them for the future world of working alongside AI technology, rather than having to come and check, on a regular basis. Are there some regular queries, I guess, that customers have that you can prepare your advisors to say, right, okay, moving forward, I'm absolutely confident to empower you all to make the decisions in these situations based on your experience. The other important aspect of a team leader role is to be observant. Now, if you are in the office with your team, it's about just taking a pause, not looking at your computer screen for hours on end, and actually just taking a step back and looking around, listening to the conversations, to pick up when an advisor is stressed, to pick up when an advisor's had a really difficult conversation, to check in and make sure that they're okay. Now, if you can't see your team because they're working from home, how are you building in those regular check-ins? How are you building in regular live listening to calls to pick up in the moment when there is a difficult conversation? So you can then, after that conversation, check in with your advisor. They may be working from home, to ask how they are, to see if they need a short break. So making sure that you are being observant as you absolutely can be. But of course, as an advisor, it's also about you taking ownership and not being afraid to say to your team leader, that was a really difficult call. Would it be okay if I just take a few minutes break just to gather my thoughts, and just rather than going straight from one difficult call into another and taking that anxiety and that stress with you. Another key important support that team leaders can give is giving praise in the moment. Again, if you've just listened to a call, don't wait until next week in a one-to-one to give praise in that particular situation. Make sure that throughout the week you are giving in the moment praise to every single one of your team. So you're taking an opportunity at least once a week. Every team member has received some in the moment praise from you, so that they feel valued for their contribution, but they also understand. And again, this is really important from a team leader perspective, to make sure that your advisors understand the important part they play within your organization. I've lost count of the number of times I've heard team leaders say in a training session, oh, I'm just an advisor. Let's remove that just. I've already said that first impressions matter, and an advisor is the first impression of your company when they make a contact. So making sure your team understand the value and the contribution that they bring to the organization and the important part that they play. And the final support that I talk about on a regular basis is coaching. If you want to develop your team to be great problem solvers of the future, to have great decision-making skills, to have the confidence to identify not the problems, but the solutions, for them to come with you armed with solutions, for them to be able to say to a customer on the phone what would be the best solution for them based on their problem solving and decision making abilities. Then the best way to develop your advisors is through regular coaching support. So they start to feel confident in their own abilities. They start to identify actions and solutions that are going to help them in their role, but are also going to have a positive impact on customers. So whether you're an advisor or whether you're a manager, hopefully there's been some important techniques and tips that I've been able to share in this live session today. And of course, if you're watching on a recording, then I do welcome your feedback. But do let me know if you found this session of value today, and I will be uploading the session to YouTube as well. So if you do want to share the recording with your advisors, with your team members throughout the course of next week, so that they can, I guess, have a little bit of free training, yeah. Then do make sure that you do that. But I will be posting the link to the YouTube video once it's on there. But thank you ever so much, everybody, for joining me on this Friday morning. I hope whatever you're up to for the rest of the day, that you have a great one. My next LinkedIn Live, I will be joined by the wonderful excuse me, Clayton Drotsky, who will be talking all about leadership and the impact leaders have in more detail in terms of the service delivered to customers. And that will be at the end of the month. That will be on the 26th of May. And a later time as well, because I am flexible with the time in terms of when my guests are available. So it'll be at 2:30 on the 26th of this month. So do join me for that one. But thank you again, everybody, for joining the session. And I hope, as I say, that that this has been of value to you. I thank you ever so much, Happy, for your for your positive feedback. But I'm going to bring this session to a close now. But as I say, hopefully you join me at the beginning and you're still with me here at the end. But have a fantastic Friday, everyone.